Tulsi Gabbard could be one of Trump's most important nominees. Here's why. Tulsi Gabbard was chosen to be head of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which, for those of you who don't know, is one of the most important intel agencies ever created. Here's why. First off, the agency was created after 9/11 because the idea was that 9/11 happened due to a failure in intelligence. Supposedly, a lot of the intel agencies had a lot of information about the pilots, their whereabouts, what was going on the days before 9/11, but didn't communicate with each other. And therefore, because they didn't share information, that's how 9/11 happened, so they say. So the Office of Director of the National Intelligence was created to essentially be over every intel agency. So what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean that the ODNI is the boss telling the FBI and the CIA what to do, but what the ODNI really does is it has the permission and the authority to get any piece of information from any intel agency that they want. Meaning, Tulsi Gabbard can go to the FBI and say, I demand to see every file on X, Y, and Z, and the FBI has to turn it over. She can put that request out for all 17 of the United States intel agencies, and they have to comply. Meaning, she is now the eyes and the ears of the entire United States national security establishment, and she reports directly to the president and feeds him that information. So what's interesting about this is, one, Tulsi was not always a Trump loyalist. If you look at Trump's appointees, regardless of their beliefs, their backgrounds, they normally have one theme in common. That theme is that they were a Trump loyalist from at least 2016 onward. Tulsi doesn't fit that mold. In fact, she wasn't with Trump in 2016. She was actually kind of a Bernie supporter, and she ended up being a Bernie supporter all the way even through to 2020, and did not support Kamala Harris in the 2020 presidential primary on the Democratic side. Over time, became kind of a Democratic outcast. But here's what makes Tulsi Gabbard so neat. Much like RFK Jr., her becoming an outcast made her more relatable and more close to Trump than, say, some traditional Republicans like the Mitch McConnells and Paul Ryans of the world. Because you have to remember, one, Donald Trump actually was a Democrat in the 90s, but he went through an experience that not a lot of people have gone through, where you are part of the accepted class and then you turn around and reject all of that and find your own path. Remember, before he ran for president, everybody, Democratic or Republican, loved Donald Trump. It wasn't until he ran for president that really the media and all these establishment types really began to hate him. Tulsi Gabbard was very similar, a Democratic protege from the state of Hawaii. Tulsi Gabbard was well loved and well liked by the establishment as a whole, but her anti-war stance put her at odds with the Democratic Party, and she eventually ended up becoming a Republican and endorsing Donald Trump. So even though she was not always a Trump loyalist, she shared a lot of the Donald Trump framework for what it takes to be a cabinet position and what might be one of the most aggressive administrations that are going to go after the deep state. Further, Tulsi Gabbard has a wealth of knowledge. She was already in Congress, she was in the military, she has a very good feeling for how the government industrial complex works, from its funding resources to its alliances with the media, all down to being targeted by that governmental complex herself by being put on a no-fly list, which is another thing that makes her pick so interesting. And you'll notice this in various picks of Donald Trump's. He's picking people to head agencies that have personally targeted the people he's appointing. So for Tulsi Gabbard to now have unlimited access to all the data of every intel agency in the United States after being targeted by the intel agencies shows you that he's out for blood and that he knows what he's doing. It also means that Tulsi Gabbard is a very unique individual fit for this job because she has an understanding of what needs to happen to the security establishment as a whole, and she's gonna know where to look. There are some concerns about Tulsi Gabbard being a Democrat or a former Democrat and some of her other policies, but you have to remember this. Trump's cabinet picks obey Donald Trump. What he's looking for are people who have a personal vested interest in putting down the agencies that they're appointed to or correcting some type of behavior. Further, he cares about loyalty. And whatever conversations Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard had before November 5th, obviously they cut some deal to the point where now they are good friends. You see Tulsi Gabbard following Donald Trump out in public, spending plenty of time at Mar-a-Lago. This is different in 2016 because another thing to know, these are all Donald Trump appointments. He's not asking the establishment people like the Chris Christies or Reince Priebus's of the world that he did in 2016 to help him find people to appoint. These are people that he's personally vetted, that he's personally talked to and cut deals with. There are no middlemen, which means if he trusts Tulsi and you like Donald Trump, then you should trust Tulsi too. I think she's going to be a great pick because she's going to be aggressive enough, and if Trump trusts her, she's going to have his ear to tell him what exactly needs to be done, what files need to be released, how to prevent another war, because these intel agencies, by the way, are often the ones who are getting us into wars overseas. And so for Tulsi to be able to ask for whatever data she wants and be aggressive about that, while, mind you, working with other appointees by Trump, like the head of the DOJ, the head of the FBI, the heads of the CIA, to gather that data will bring the intel agencies hopefully to kneel and stop whatever pro-war incentives they have or anti-American incentives they have to continue going forward.